Welcome to the Advance Your Art podcast, where we talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur and everything in between. You've worked hard to hone your craft. Now take it to the next level with tips, techniques, strategies, and routines used by successful artists to grow their businesses and careers. Now, let's get started and have some fun with your host, Yuri Cataldo.
Hi, Annette. How are you today?
I am doing awesome, Yuri. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm just enjoying the cool weather on the East Coast. How are things in your neck of the woods?
It's actually not cool here. It's quite humid in Southern California, and actually surprisingly more humid and hot than other parts of the country where it's more like that. You know, it's more normally like that. But I like heat. I like the sunshine, so I can't complain.
Well, that's great. How long have you been in Southern California?
So funny you asked that, Yuri, because I was just thinking about that seriously, like minutes ago. That's so weird that you asked that. But I've been here since the summer of 1989, so over 20 some years. It's been a while. Yeah.
That's impressive. I've never lived in a place longer than 5 years, other than like where I grew up in the Midwest. So I find it fascinating. So why is it just because you really, really like Southern California, or is there particular reasons why you're still there?
That is a good question. I thought that I would be one of those people moving every 6 or 7 years because I grew up that way with my dad being in the military. So we moved a little bit, not as much as some other military families, but about every 6 years we moved since I was young. So for me to say that I've been in California for such a long time, the original plan actually was for me to stay throughout college. So that would have been, like about 4 to 6 years and then move. Actually, I wanted to move to the East Coast, but I didn't. I got scared. So that's part of what's kept me here, my family. And I'm actually looking to move soon. I don't know how soon, but I have an itch to move and to travel more. So it's interesting that you asked that.
Oh, that's great. All right. Well, I'm glad I could bring that part up this morning. That's fantastic. So you run a podcast called the DancePreneuring Studio podcast. Is that correct?
The DancePreneuring Studio. So it's dance, a play on words from
right.
Dance and entrepreneur with ing at the end. DancePreneuring.
Okay. DancePreneuring. What made you interested in starting that podcast, and what is it? I mean, it sounds like it's pretty obvious what it focuses on, but tell me more about that.
I never thought that I would be a podcaster ever. It was never a goal of mine. It was never something that it's just weird thinking, oh my goodness, I have this podcast now that I get to talk about two of my biggest passions, dance and business. And the reason I started it, one of the reasons is because I wanted to see if I could do it, if I could put something such as dance, something artistic on a platform that's not visual and be able to talk about that. And I wanted a medium where I could promote dancers and choreographers who are also entrepreneurial so that they'd get a chance to talk about their projects and what the process has been like in their artistic and their business journeys. And it's been one of the most fulfilling things for me because I love to get into the thought processes of what's behind an artist brand and the journey that they've been through. And obviously there are similarities with all of us in whether you are an artistic entrepreneur or not. And so a business mentor of mine suggested that I start a podcast, and I thought, well, can I really do it? Because I hate the sound of my voice. And I had all these insecurities, which that stemmed from years of other stuff too. And so I thought, well, you know what? Let me do this, because I also didn't want to be one of those people that said, oh yeah, I want to start this and do this and never do it and just not put action behind my words. So that's part of the reason why I started the podcast, and to be able to talk about things that I'm passionate about and highlight people and give them another platform to talk about their work. It's so much fun for me. It's very fulfilling for me because of the subject matter is so dear to my heart. Mm-hmm. And so it's a number of things. And I never, ever thought that I would I would be doing this. So that's how it got started, basically.
Okay, excellent. And how long have you been doing it for?
Since I believe it's been has it been 2 years? January 2015, I released my first 4 episodes, and I'm releasing episode number 131 this week.
Wow, so, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Wow, yeah. So how do you find the time to devote to podcasting? Is it something that you're then spending the majority of your time on? Is it also just a side project, or how does that work?
I would love to spend more time on it, actually. I would really love it to be my only that and speaking, which oh my gosh, I never thought I would say that I want to continue speaking. It's still weird for me to hear myself say that, but I'm finding that there is so much impact that you can have with your voice, with your message. And that's what I'm finding with podcasting. So for now, I guess you would say it's a side project, but it's forefront on my mind all the time. I get ideas all the time for content with my daily life, with being involved in the dance world and the things I do for online marketing with my clients. It all fuels the podcast. So yes, it is a side project, but then everything that I do in my daily life fuels the content of the podcast. So how would you define that, right? I guess it's an all involved process throughout the day. But I don't necessarily schedule when I'm going to record it. I kind of have to work it in with other stuff. And that's kind of the hard part of it when you have a lot of other things going on. But I've made a commitment to stick with it. And I know that for a lot of people that's starting out, they have these grand ideas, which is great to have grand ideas, that they want all these downloads and get famous and all these kind of things. And when it doesn't happen after episode number 5, then they quit, right? So I think people don't, just as with anything else, I think people don't realize how much work it takes, and that it's a marathon. I'm finding it's a marathon, because there have been times where I thought, I love this, but am I really supposed to be doing this? Am I really making a difference, and that kind of thing? So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Well, that brings up another question then. So you're 2 years in. What keeps you driving forward with your podcast? Do you get a lot of feedback from your audience? Is it something that's just already part of routine that you're working on, so that it just automatically, the content and doing this flow more easily? Or what is it that keeps you pushing forward to do this for another year? Because there are a lot of people that I know who do get, again, you just said, they get really excited about doing a podcast. They do like 3 or 4 episodes, and then you're right, they're not suddenly getting all these downloads, and they're not getting all these sponsors, and they're like, well, this is stupid, I'm just going to give this up and do something else. So what is it that really keeps you going with this?
It's a combination of all those things, and probably stubbornness. Because for so long, Yuri, I was afraid to put myself out there, and I didn't want to have any more regrets of giving up on myself and giving up on things. Granted, there are things that you need to quit. If something is not working, there's all kinds of variables, right? Everybody's journey is different in this entrepreneurial artistic journey. But I have to say, I am a bit stubborn and persistent about it, and I love talking about the subject matter. I love highlighting the people that I get to interview, the relationships that I've formed. And I love making a difference, that I can be encouraging to someone through my story, through my journey, even all the mistakes I've made, the regrets I have, the disappointments, that all has encouraged someone or inspired someone. And I really get fulfillment out of that as well. And also having my guests say, I want to be back on the show, and I want to continue this conversation, and that their experience was good, really makes me feel great. And so that's what keeps me going as well.
Oh, excellent. So let's talk a little bit then about just your subject matter being dance. So when did you first get interested in the dance world in general? And is that something that you studied in school, or is it just something that's kind of evolved?
I got interested in dance when I was about 8, when I started taking hula and Tahitian in Texas. My dad was stationed there, and there was a community there. And so I started with that, loved it. And then I don't know why I quit, but we moved again. He got stationed in Hawaii. We got moved over there, and the place where hula and Tahitian are prominent, I stopped doing it. Instead, I got into ice skating and roller skating, of all things. And then that was really, it was always something artistic, right? So, and that had to do with movement. And then he retired from the military, and we moved back to Guam, where his family was that had a business there. And it's a small island. It's a small U.S. territory. At that time, there was not a lot available dance-wise. Mm-hmm. And so finally, when a studio opened up, I took my first ballet and jazz class at age 14. So that's considered kind of late. So I was also with students that were 4, 5, 6 years old, half my age, and here I was a teenager taking class with them, but I didn't care because I got to dance. So that's how I got started in it. I did study it in college. I went to a university in the Southern California area, in this area called Irvine. Mm-hmm. And at that time is one of the top schools for studying dance in an academic setting. So I did study. I had some incredible teachers that have had really great careers with companies and had their own companies. But I quit right after I graduated. So I quit after I graduated, and I did not pick up dance again, to make a long story short, until about 3 years ago. So I had a 20-plus year hiatus before I started dancing again.
Oh, wow. So what were you doing in your 20-year hiatus?
Beating myself up, getting depressed because I wasn't dancing, and got into a business model that was very mentally destructive until I didn't realize that until I got out of the business model, until I stopped pursuing that business model, how incongruent it was. Now, you would think that I would figure this out during the process, but I was so entrenched in that thought process system that I couldn't see the forest for the trees until after I was away from it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So, so it was a very interesting journey, lots of mistakes made, lots of lessons learned, and still things that I'm overcoming through that process. But not dancing, not honoring that part of myself, Yuri, that I loved so much, and making decisions that I have regretted. But in this process, I'm so thankful. I would not have changed anything because I've learned so much. It really took a toll on me physically, mentally. I was not in great shape at all, physically, mentally, and dealt with a lot of internal and external issues in the process. Mm-hmm.
So what was it, or that moment, that made you decide to get back into dance and to make a change?
I was tired of being tired. I was tired of looking at myself in the mirror going, what happened? Why did I give up? Why am I talking about things I love and not doing anything about it? Why am I allowing the opinions of other people to dictate how I live my life? And so I was in a shaved ice snow cone shop, and I had seen an ad for a studio in an area that I had no idea, like I was not familiar with it. And it said, all levels, all styles, and it's just a very short clip of an ad for a studio. And I thought, you know what? I got to do this. I just can't be away from it anymore. I got to at least give myself a chance. And so that's when I decided. And even then, that process, I was like, oh gosh, I'm kind of scared to go in there. I'm not 20 anymore. And this is just, but I got to do this. I got to at least give myself a shot and get back into shape. My goodness, at least get healthy, So that's how it started. That's that little thing that just, it was always in there, Yuri, I believe, but it just, sure, there's that tipping point, that spark that just turned right there. So that's what happened basically.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So with dance then, and I guess let's talk a little more about the dance world, particularly then about the subject of your podcast, because all of the arts are having a problem, and they have had for a while. Dance particularly, I feel like dancers are maybe the least set up for surviving what's happening with the economy and everything kind of changing over, and just the lack of funding happening in the arts, because as like a studio artist, like whether you're a painter, or graphic artist, that kind of stuff, sometimes it's a little easier to think, okay, I can transfer this skill into something more, let's say, into the business world. And having worked in theater